bullets, they are strangely very difficult to make an identification match. Only about 20 to 30% of the time will you be capable of doing so. Secondly, in this particular instance, the H&R gun which the guard had and the Ivor Johnson 22 caliber gun that Sirhan had, both had the same rifling characteristics, 0.054 inches. And that is very strange. That was not known until the late 80s, early 90s. But both of these people had guns with identical rifling characteristics.
Could that have been made that way on purpose?
No, that was done by the manufacturer, and you'll find those in the records of gun manufacturing, and that's how you find that.
What a case. Robert, let's take a few calls here also while we've got you. Let's go west of the Rockies. Richard, you're on the air with us. Hi there.
Hi, George. Always a great program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, I tuned in late because I was asleep, actually, but I was there. I was one of Kennedy's workers, and I was in with the group that he was supposed to see. I'm going to make a comment now, and I'd like to get your opinion on it. We were told he was going to come down. Gene Barry was there. His Kennedy's campaign manager was down there. They all told us he was going to come down. He was going to come down. And I was by the NBC camera guy, the video camera guy, and we were all waiting for him to come down. And all of a sudden, he tells me that he hears on the radio that they're whisking him out of a different entrance, and he's not going to come this way. I ended up going home thinking that he was on his way to Chicago. My thought and my question to you is, I really think this is a conspiracy.
Well, there are many people who would join you in that, but in the doing of this, the purpose that the cause or the reason for him not going to the ballroom down below is because it changed his itinerary and it went through the pantry to go to the colonial room, which was at the far easterly end of the pantry. He never got there, of course, because he was shot before he got there. But he was going there to satisfy the request of the written media to talk to him before he went downstairs, instead of what they had planned before that, to take him down then to the colonial room. That's how that came about. As far as a conspiracy is concerned, there are a lot of writers who have, in fact, every writer to this day until Phil Van Prague and I wrote our book, they've always talked about conspiracies. We found that we didn't have to talk about conspiracy to prove that it was impossible for Sirhan to have shot Senator Kennedy, and therefore he did not shoot him, and he could not have shot him because of the physical facts just do not fit.
But you do believe he was a gunman?
Well,
somebody had
to shoot him. Who it was, we don't say. The only person I know of that had a gun who was in that position was this guard.
No, but I mean, you don't doubt that Sirhan was one of the two who fired guns?
Oh, no. There's no question about it. He fired twice. The first bullet hitting Paul straight in the head, and he fired a second time, and then there was a pause, and then he was put on top of the steam table, and he kept on firing another 6 times on the top of the steam table.
Well, you know, what we need to get to the bottom of is whether the 2 guns were actually used. It appears with your research that is indeed the case. What we may never know is the motive behind it, whether it was an accident or whether it truly was 2 gunmen who were out there to get Robert Kennedy.
That's true. And I think that's a very fair presentation that it may never be known. Because, and again, even if it was known, the question arises again, was this done as a hysteria conversion reaction, or was this done with intent? And that you never know. However, you also have to understand that all of these shots, the 14 that we know of, the 13 that Phil has captured on the oscillographic tracing,
right,
that they occurred within 5.5 seconds, even in spite of that 2 shots and then a pause. So it only covered 5.5 seconds. The whole thing happened.
That you know what? I have fired handguns before, and even one to shoot off 6 to 8 shots. That's fast.
Yes, and in this particular instance, the oscillographic tracings show that there were 2 double shots. In other words, shots so close together that no one would be able to fire a gun to make those two shots occur within the milliseconds that they occurred.
Yeah, it's almost as if they were both fired at the same time.
Yes, just a split hair off, you see. And that was a very interesting finding. And then also the other thing was that when you looked at what happened here on the delta waves on the oscillogram, there was a difference between the gun that was an Ivor Johnson and the gun that is an H&R. And that was very interesting because the megahertz that they came in at was altogether different, and the pattern for the 5 shots was constantly the same, and the pattern for the 8 shots was constantly the same. And therefore we knew that there were 2 sets of shots being fired from 2 different directions, directly 180 degrees opposing one to the other.
Has there ever been a ballistics test done on the guard's gun prior to what you...
No, his gun was never taken into custody.
Amazing.
And in fact, he said immediately after the shooting, when he was questioned, that he had owned a .22 caliber gun, but that he had sold it 3 months before the incident. Later on, he changed that because we found a receipt showing that he had sold it to a guy by the name of Yoder 3 months, right to the day after the assassination, not before.
But yet 40 years later, they decide, let's test it.
Well, that's because they just got it. They haven't had it till now.
Oh, they just got it?
Yeah, the gun ended up in the hands of a man by the name of Yoder who went to Arkansas. And while he was there, some kids burglarized his home, got the gun. Then, as I understand it, when they found out that the gun was hot and what it had been involved in, they threw it into a pond. And then somebody who was an investigative journalist happened to hear about it, went out to Yoder. Yes, indeed, he had bought the gun. He gave a statement to it, showed the person the receipt, and then had the pond drained and got the gun. Then that gun ended up down in Dallas, Texas, and then finally, just recently I'm talking about now, when it was traced and they found out where it was, it's my understanding that it was then taken over and given to the Attorney General's office in the state of California, where it's now reposing, and it's supposed to be undergoing firing or test firing.
Jay,
but again, as I say, even if they test fired, it comes out negative. That doesn't
right.
mean they didn't shoot it.
But if it comes out positive, then we have a real story.
Then we've got some more evidence, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Robert, an open shut case, where do you get your book?
Well, our open and shut case, you go to an open and shut case, and that's spelled out, A-N and O-P-E-N, A-N-D, shut, S-H-U-T-K-C-A-S-E.com. Now, this is an author's pre-publication review text, and we've given this book to several people around the country to view it before we find a national published report.
Well, let me tell you, you've done some great work here, you and Philip Van Praag. Good luck on that. Well, you know her as the award-winning investigative reporter, producer, who goes directly to the forefront of science and environmental stories. She witnesses a phrase that she developed called high strangeness. It's Linda Moulton Howe. Full program tonight. Hey, Linda, how are you?
Hi, George. It's fun to be on with some stories about the solar system and our Earth.
Well, you are going to enjoy this new format for you, where basically, barring your schedule,
right.
This is going to be your Thursday once a month.
Well, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. You'll do that, and we don't have to worry about chopping you up on Open Line Fridays or anything like that. So that'll be good. Now, you have been tell us a little bit about how you work before we go into your first story. I mean, how do you get your stories, and then how do you know I'm going after that one?
Well, there are many things going on. I always think of myself as sort of in a 12-ring circus. And remember if you went to any of the Barnum and Bailey circuses when you were a kid, and there was always that clown that would get these 12 sticks going with a plate on the top of the 12 sticks, and the whole challenge was to see if he could get all the plates spinning on all 12 sticks before one fell down. Well, that is sort of the way I live in this regard. With the Internet, now, where once upon a time you might get a phone call or a fax a day,